Welcome into News and Views in the afternoon here on a lovely Monday. I'm your host, Joey Clark. We also have my trusty sidekick, Eddie Bader, in the studio. How you doing today,
Eddie?
Eddie?
Doing wonderful, Joey. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. And we got a busy week ahead of us.
Yeah, we do.
It really do. And just a busy couple months ahead of us. And joining us now in the studio, we have candidate for Congress, Robin Litaker. Robin, how are you doing today?
I was doing real good till I listened to the news this morning from Washington.
Well, that's how I usually am. I'm doing good until I read the news.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
But what in particular in the news?
Well, I'm sitting here watching. We've had 3 soldiers who have died,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
we've had many, many attacks. We don't hear about it most of the time. And then we have a president who's saying, oh, I'm going to respond. And, you know, we don't have a man in Washington that's decisive like our previous president was. And that's worrisome. And then also, I think I mentioned to you that World Economic Forum has decided to take coffee off the table for us,
Right.
get rid of all the coffee production.
Why coffee?
Well, I don't know, but it's like I said, you know, people say you'll take my gun from my cold dead hands, you'll take my cup of coffee from my cold dead hands.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just they have just gotten where it's past ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I'm running.
Oh, amen. So for folks who don't know you, and I appreciate you starting the show with that, and it really is a shame, in my humble opinion. Part of me thinks that some of these deployments were almost sitting ducks, but I hate to think that way. But what other point, how much security are they providing, these small contingents of troops? So I think it's a shame that this administration in particular would put people in harm's way. But I want to give the voters out there, maybe for just the first time getting to know you and your voice and your perspective, let's start with the basics. And I ask everybody this running for office, why do this to yourself?
Well, that's what my family asked. And I'm a retired educator. And I don't think we have any choice. You know, somebody has got to step up. I'm retired. This is not going to be my career. I've already had one. This is going to be my service to the people of District 7 in Alabama. And why do it to myself? I've got real thick skin. I'm just, I'm on a mission. There's a need, and we're going to get the job done.
Now, you were, speaking of thick skin, this might have helped in the development of that. You were a teacher and a principal for 32 years combined?
33 and a half.
33 and a half. And you were even one year, 97 Teacher of the Year
Yeah.
here in the state. So I'd imagine I mean, a lot of rewarding, amazing moments, but also a lot of moments where, you know, dealing with kids isn't always the easiest thing in the world.
The kids and the parents were fine. It's the politics of
Mhm.
it that I had the worst time with. And you know, God puts you in certain situations, and sometimes you're sitting there going, oh my God, why am I sitting here?
Right.
And now I know why. I mean, all the committees, task force, you know, all those fancy names that I sat on for the state of Alabama, and I witnessed firsthand how these bureaucratic agencies run, and they're a mess, and they need to go. And that's one of the things I'm running for. We will get rid of the Department of Education.
Well, you're here.
And you hear politicians say that all the time, and there's a lot to be concerned about in Washington, but I tend to intend to ultra focus on the Department of Education.
Well, and I love that idea. How does that get done? Because you're right, people have been promising it for years now, and it just hasn't happened.
Well, I've actually worked with some groups here in Alabama, the Conservative Christian Coalition, the Common Sense Campaign, and we have proposed for years a plan, and that plan will involve reversing the money flow. And let me give you an example. When a dollar leaves Washington, it makes several stops along the way before it actually gets in the classroom. It stops in Montgomery. It stops at the governor's office. It stops at the school district office. It stops at somebody in the school. And you're lucky by the time the money gets to the classroom if you've got 15 cents or a quarter. But the worst part of it is you're told what you have to do with it. And there isn't, I'm going to say, ain't nobody, anybody in Washington know how what a child needs in Choctaw County to read. The parents, the teachers, and I believe in school choice know what is needed. So my first plan is we're going to reverse that money flow because federal money, the federal government has no business in our business, and they are all up in our business and education.
And it sounds like you've seen it firsthand. And as you just said, some of the most frustrating parts of your career. You love working with the kids and parents, but it's more this bureaucracy.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you get in a classroom with a child and you know what you need in order to teach them to read, but you turn and you look at your Title I material that the government and the state says you have to use, and it's not adequate. Now, that might be okay in Mount Brook because they have plenty of money to buy other stuff. But in Marengo County, they don't. Hale County, they don't. So what I'm saying is we're going to reverse that money flow. And you're going to hear it from me over and over and over.
And again, folks, we're talking to Robin Litaker running for U.S. Congress, but it's District 7. Because I don't want folks to get confused now in this listening area. We have several congressional districts. You're in 7. If you get the Republican nomination, you'd be going up against presumably Terry Sewell?
Terry Sewell, yes.
Okay. So talk about District 7. How do you think that part of the state is going?
This is one of the things I've been traveling for a year, and I am a very tender-hearted person, but I am tough as nails. And the stuff I'm seeing, no running water and sewage service that Sewell is now getting on, but she's been there 14 years, so it's a little late. There's a couple I'm going to visit this week that has had raw sewage running on their property for 30 years. Now, federal government cannot fix everything, but I know good and well that if you can get federal money to go towards projects, then some of these communities that don't have as much money would be more likely to be able to chip in. State can chip in. I just think it's past time that we haven't paid attention. And she definitely hasn't paid attention. She has pet projects that she throws money at, and that's going to come to an end. I mean, there are more things than sewage. I mean,
of course.
I can tell you people, like I've run into 2 veterans one night that were just distressed over the fact that their Social Security is double taxed. And Sewell sits on that committee. She's not on that particular subcommittee, but you can't get anybody to answer the phone. And if you do, you certainly won't get a call back. And I've got, and I'll be quiet when you tell me to. But
oh, no, keep going, please.
I've got plans for how the district will be set up so that people can get in touch with me. If I had time, I'd tell you a story about what happened to me as a child. I have a sister with cerebral palsy, and my father called our senator, and he actually got a law change so that my sister could get a handicap license plate. And, and I'm sitting there, and my dad cried because this senator called our house. And it's like the further away you get from these public officials, the least likely they are to respond to you. When they go on break, I'm like, you get paid $179,000 a year. You do not get a break. Now, that's one thing about me. I worked for 33 and a half years,
right.
And I called in sick once.
Wow.
I always got sick on the weekends for some reason. But,
It just worked out that
yeah,
way.
it worked out that way. I gave sick days away, but I mean, I work hard. And if somebody's paying me that kind of money, I'm not going to fly like Terry Sewell did to, I think it was Greece with Nancy Pelosi and drink fancy wine on the government.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Now, the first person, Eddie, you remember Portia Shepherd, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Portia, lovely young woman, and she first alerted us to, in particular, the sewage problems and the water problems you were talking about. And as you were suggesting, I'd imagine this didn't start yesterday. I'd imagine this problem even goes back to before Terry Sewell being in Congress.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So, like, is it just being out of touch, like you're suggesting? Like, how are we dropping the ball here?
Well, and that's the thing. You would think, I mean, the World Health Organization many years ago, like in 2018, declared Sumter and Greene County as bad as a third world country.
Mm.
And I'm like, I don't know how it's happened. I don't know why it keeps getting ignored. I do know one thing: when government gives you money, who was it? John Merrill used to say it moves with the speed of government. You know,
Right.
And I'll give you an example of that. I went to a historic home, Gainesville home over in Demopolis, and it was getting dark, and I paid to have a tour, and they didn't have any lights upstairs. And I was looking, and there, the walls were chipping, and the young guy, I think he was a Democrat, he said, "Well, we've got $1 million grant." And then somebody told me later, "Yeah, we have $1 million grant, but every time we want to break into it and get something to repair the house, they have to call a bureaucrat in Montgomery." It's like, how did we get, when we get Republicans in office, these agencies are just full of Democrats. And, Trump, and again, I said, I'll shut up when you tell me to. Trump has suggested that we move some of these agencies out of Washington.
Yep.
And that we put people overseeing the agencies who will, to me, you got to go in there with a wrecking ball.
Amen.
I mean,
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah,
and
that's Joey Clark right there.
yeah, well, I was planning on in Super Tuesday, if he had made it here, to vote for Vivek Ramaswamy, because I love the let's just shut it down, a lot of these agencies. But I think the moving it out of Washington idea is also pretty good idea. So we're very much so far on the same page, Robin. I've got to hit a quick break. When we come back, I want to get to some of the big issues. It's very clear, getting closer and closer to these primary elections, that the big issues are, say, the economy and inflation in particular. But right now, I think the top issue for Americans is what we're seeing at the border.
Yes.
So I want to get into all that in just a second. Again, folks, we're talking to Robin Litaker. She is a candidate for Congress, Alabama, District 7. Looking forward to continuing.
Joey Clark.
Welcome back. It's News and Views in the afternoon. I'm Joey. He's Eddie. And in the studio, we have Robin Litaker. She is a candidate for Congress, District 7, Alabama Congressional District 7. And where we left off, Robin, is what we're seeing on the border. And I think in polling now, it's showing this is the top issue for Americans. So what do you make of what we're seeing down there?
Well, today is, in fact, I went to a prayer group before I came here. This is something we all need to be concerned about. We need to be praying about. I am very grateful that our governor has stood up and said, "We stand with you, Texas." I mean, this is going to be very interesting because Governor Abbott has the responsibility to take care of the people of Texas. And this is going to be a big constitutional question. And I believe Abbott's in the right with it, and Biden needs to back down. I talked to a law enforcement person, I don't want to say who it is, over in West Alabama last week, and I said, you know, this is something we're going to have to be more and more concerned with, and he went, oh no, van after van of illegal aliens are coming into our country. And, you know, I'll tell you where I stand on it. They need to leave. There's a right and wrong way to do something.
Right.
And if you come into this country the wrong way, then you need to turn around and go back out. Now, that's going to be hard to do, but this bill, have y'all seen the bill that they have?
Oh, the Senate's trying to work out?
Yeah. All
heard of
the
it, yeah.
negotiating, you can stay here if you can stay here.
Nope.
No. Now, the problem will come in when you say things like I've just said. The left is, oh, what about the poor children? What about the people who've been, that's not who we're talking about. There are people who have come across the border, get their $2,300 that our country gives them, their cell phone. They cross back, and then they come back
and do it
across
again.
again.
Wow.
They, you know, and we have 67,000 homeless veterans in this country. And we can't do better than that.
Right.
I mean, we can't do better by them than that. And yet, we're just letting people pour across the border. No country on this earth does what we have allowed, what Biden has allowed to happen. You can tell it makes me angry.
Absolutely. And I hate seeing what I'm seeing. You know, I agreed when Trump said we need a wall with a big, beautiful door, but he'd come in legally.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was good. You do him well.
Well, and what's the line that he said? You know, they say I'm controversial. They asked me about immigration. I said, it's illegal. And so, yeah, I think it's one thing to have a heart in the sense that we could have more legal immigration. Maybe there's a question on pulling that back given how many folks come to the country. But in terms of actually securing the border so folks come through ports of entry, I mean, when you look at the statistics, they're almost, I hate repeating them, when you look at, say, sexual assault, trafficking, what's happening to women and girls in particular through that corridor. This is not some humanitarian, wonderful thing we're doing.
And the
setting this up.
fentanyl.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Yes. We've got some very serious problems. And the Democrats are trying to take 2 districts from us in Alabama. They want 2 more votes. And for the first time, District 7 can be won by a Republican. And let me just say this, it's not about being a Republican or a Democrat.
Right.
It's about basic human decency in District 7. I mean, all the way from Birmingham, the poop trains in Birmingham, all the way down to Choctaw County. People are being ignored and they're tired of it. In fact, you can go on my Facebook page. I was in Selma last week. I'm going back. I have a group of people that I'm meeting with down there. And you look at the pictures, it's not what you see when they go across the bridge.
Right.
And it's an absolute shame. And but I was going to ask, why do you think it's more winnable? Is it the new makeup of the district?
The new makeup of the district. The percentages are more in favor. And I also, if you look at the vote tallies over the last 3 elections, somebody's not voting for her on purpose.
Right. And it used to be something like 70-30 Democrat to Republican, I think. So now it's even out.
47-53.
Okay, wow. Yes, that is more
And
recent.
I have gone into neighborhoods in Birmingham, and, you know, they're just tired of it.
I imagine so. And it really is awful when you see in our own backyard, you know, and we're going to keep going with a lot of other issues, but inflation's hurt me. Like, and I'm doing all right in life, but you can see when food costs so much more, when gas costs so much more, oh, it's come back down. Well, how are you going to make me whole for the 17% I lost last year? Let's just say on housing expenses, on food expenses, on fuel expenses. And so if it's tough on, say, I'm doing all right, a middle-class person, I can't imagine for somebody who's just getting by, if you're on fixed income, This has got to be hurting folks in this part of the world a lot.
Well, yeah, and the last I looked, the average income in the Black Belt was like 36,000. Now, if I've missed it by 2,000, please forgive me. But and last I heard, the average family is having to do on $700 a month less. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, but that's a huge. Because
every
that's a huge hit.
every child that's born today already owes the federal government $100,000, and we have to. The woman that does the president,
Oh, the press secretary.
press secretary,
Yeah.
she makes it sound like everything's okay, and it's not okay. And that's why the percentages, I'm not paying attention to them. I'm paying attention to the people that I'm meeting. And the more I travel, and I'll just pull over on the side of the road, walk in a restaurant or walk in a store and start talking to people. And I'm telling you, people are angry, they're fed up, and they need help. And it's going to come, because we're gonna take this district.
Now, is it just from what you just said and how you said it? This isn't just, oh, I'm running for office. It's not just abstract. It's not academic even. It sounds very personal to you. How long have you lived in this district?
30 years. I've lived in Homewood. I have a little house in Homewood. I know how Homewood is now, all the bajillion-dollar houses, but I don't have one of those. I'm a retired teacher. I live on a fixed income. A lot of this does come from the way I was raised, and having a sister that's handicapped and watching my parents try to get just basic services for her. And it's not easy. And you work hard, you do the right thing, and you get kicked in the mouth. And I just want to do everything I can when a Republican gets in office as president. My vote is there. And you know how you get up in the morning and go, why did that Republican vote that way?
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to worry about that with me.
Amen. Well, wait, so you're not going to fall for those parties Madison Cawthorn warned everybody about?
And I'm like, okay, here's the teacher in me. Single subject bills.
Amen.
You don't have a bill on anything that deals with war and then stick something about a study on ping pong in it. And I'm being silly, but that's what happens. And they put millions upon millions of dollars into things that are just pet projects for somebody in San Francisco. I won't name anybody.
No, and I got to hit another break here, but in a second, I want to get to, because one of your planks of your platform that you're running on is restore our military. So I would unpack what that means and get into, I thought of it because, these multi-purpose bills. Right now, that negotiation you mentioned earlier with the border is tied up in Ukraine funding, and I think about $14 billion to Israel, but like $60 billion to Ukraine. So I kind of want to just pick your brain on like what's happening abroad and the United States' role in the world and how we restore the military here. Again, folks, we're talking to Robin Litaker, candidate for Congress District 7 here. If folks want to support your campaign and volunteer, donate, how can they do so?
I have a webpage, robinforalabama.com. I have 2 Facebook pages because, the bad people will shut your Facebook page down. So I have a Robin for Alabama and Robin Litaker for Congress Facebook page. And then we have a WinRed account if somebody wants to donate. But look, folks, I need money, but we need votes. And most people know somebody in District 7. I'm sorry, you
Oh,
commercial.
no. Amen. Again, folks, Robin Litaker here in the studio. More news and views in the afternoon. Well, after this quick break.
He may not know whether he's
Joey Clark.
Welcome back, everybody, to the program. I'm Joey, Eddie in the studio, and we have Robin Litaker. I'm saying it right now, folks. But Robin Litaker in the studio. Where we left off, Robin, is, well, how do we restore our military? And where I'm coming from is I almost feel like we have a lack of mission abroad, too. It's sort of like we've inherited all these responsibilities, and we're not really thinking them through real well. And then when you look at their lack of recruiting numbers right now and so many other aspects of our military, how do we begin to restore this thing?
Well, it's like a lot of things. People will do one thing and think that's going to fix something. I do believe that it's like teaching or any other profession. If the perception of it is something that you don't want to do, then people are going to be least likely to do it. And I think at this point in this country, now I'm going to just say this, you have a president who is the commander in chief. I'm not sure I'd want to work for him. And I've heard military people tell me that. I got out because, look what he did in Afghanistan. Just went off and left our troops to be mowed down. So to me, it's not one thing that's going to fix it. You got to instill a sense of pride back in the military. We've definitely got to build it up. I looked at a sheet the other day that Gary Palmer gave out at an event with the number of planes, aircraft, that type of things that we had compared to China, and we're behind. And to me, if we have a strong military, we have a strong country.
Yes, ma'am.
And I believe most people feel that way too. I threw something on the floor. I'm sorry. So again, that's not a good answer to it. As far as having military bases overseas, we've always been seen as the protector of the world since World War II. I don't think that we can necessarily get away from that, but we most certainly don't need to be places where our troops and our citizens are in harm's way. So that's maybe not a good answer to the question, but that's where I'm leaving it right now.
Well, but that's fair because, number one, you ain't running for president, and you'll be one of many if you get up there in Congress. So, and like you said, there's a lot to learn from anybody. I think even the smartest person in the world is ignorant of 99% of most knowledge, because that's just how we are. There's so much to know. And so you'll be part of a big team if you are elected to the Congress. But going back to education, you mentioned that you're for school choice, and I would interested to pick your brain on this idea. You especially being in the public system for so long, do you like the idea of other types of schooling at this point? Like whether it could be homeschooling or it could be private, more traditional micro schools, or even for adults, people more near college age, like trade schools, these sorts of things.
Yeah. And that's one of the things as I've gone through the Black Belt. There's a lady in southern part of the district. I'm not going to say her name or her school name right now, but she's opened a trade school. And one of the biggest complaints I hear from parents is that their children are growing up and moving away from home. And they want them to stay in Marengo and Hale County and, Choctaw. I keep saying the same counties. There are 13 of them. And there are places like Judson College that have been closed for years that I would like to see that be the hub of trade schools. Everybody doesn't have to go to a traditional college. In fact, you'd make more money going to a trade school and learning how to weld. So that is one of the angles that I want to work on when I get in Congress, is finding grants and federal money that would assist in opening and boosting up these trade schools.
Yeah, and I think we need creative approaches, but because you were in the system, why is there such dogged pushback to, certain new ideas I'm sure have their cons, their costs and downsides. But it seems to me that right now, especially in that district, folks have not been served well. So why don't we try something new? And yet you still see, I think, a lot of pushback, say, from the institutional players.
Yes. And I used to fight against one of those all the time, the union. I started an independent teachers organization.
To oppose the AEA.
Yes.
Amen.
That hasn't won me any friends. I'm still on the list, and you get targeted. But here's the thing: we got to go back to that theme of bureaucratic nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they don't want kids to leave public schools because they get money. Every dollar that trickles down part of it goes into somebody's pocket. Mm-hmm. And they lose control. I mean, you look at some of the stuff that's being taught in public schools now. And I don't have the exact number of public school teachers that have retired in the last 10 years, but I have so many friends that just tired of it.
Right.
You know what a child needs, but you're not able to do it because you're being told to do some other system with them that isn't what they need.
Are we talking like Common Core math, or are we talking like, say, DEI, more getting into the history class, these sorts of,
Common Core, and that's a big one, Common Core. I mean, one of the years before Common Core, when I was a principal, I had a child come in from Detroit that was pre-primer. Do you know how low that is?
Mm-mm.
That's below preschool. I mean,
oh, wow.
real low in math and reading. Now, it was before Common Core, so I had flexibility. And long story short, we got him up to the second grade level before the end of the year. Now, he was a third grader. And in the eyes of the state of Alabama, he was a failure. But he wasn't. He wasn't. We were able to do what needed to be done to move him. And that is what the federal government is preventing from happening in Alabama. And it's like any good business needs competition.
Right.
And I feel like school choice, that's a big part of it. Now, one of the complaints you're going to hear is, oh, you're taking money from public schools. When? No, you're not. No, you're not. You get paid per student. And if you have a child that leaves your school in Tuscaloosa and moves to Birmingham, the money follows them. It's not like, you're losing that money. You're not.
Right.
You wouldn't have had it anyway. If they move from one public school to another, you're losing that money. So if they move from a public school to homeschool, and the parent is able, through school choice, to get the money to bolster the education they're giving the child at home, hate it for you.
Yeah, and it's more like we these days have learned to care more about appearances and signaling virtue instead of actually embodying virtue. And, everybody falls down in that regard, I suppose. But it seems like it's just gotten really bad. And one thing I'm thinking of with this, not just education and so many of our other institutions, you were saying something to me off air. You were, in fact, holding up, I guess it was a photo of Terry Sewell crossing Edmund Pettus Bridge with the president, vice president, right? And, everybody locked arm in arm, remembering history. But you've pointed out, and honestly, you're not the first that's told me this, that just go like today, go see what it's like on the other side of that bridge right now in 2023.
Yes. And now I believe this is important. You've got to remember history.
I
I
mean,
mean,
amen,
that's
yes.
how you move forward. But what I'm saying is, you need to turn around and look behind you, Terry Sewell. Selma's falling apart. And I had a man, and I'm being very careful because I don't want anybody to get targeted because they're talking to me. But I had a man talk to me before I left Selma the other day. He was on the street, and he held his hands out and he said, "They tell us that they're going to help us." And then he held his hands out and he said, "You see, do you see what we get?"
Mhm.
And he wasn't looking for a handout. That's not the answer. The answer is better education. The answer is just, to me, a support system that's going to make sure that your city thrives. And there are some cities that are doing very well
Right.
in the Black Belt. And they get money from her. But if you look, it's where a lot of votes are. And and that's one thing about me that just really infuriates me. You don't pick and choose like that.
No, it's a shame to see where we're at, but I mean, it baffles me because I think some of these problems have been around a long, long time. And again, you said Terry Sewell's been there for 14 years.
Yeah, I had two women at a minority GOP meeting before Christmas who are from Selma. They said, "Robin, have you ever looked under the bridge?" And I went, "No, I haven't." And they said, "Will you come with us and look under the bridge?" Apparently there's a home or a building or something that has all of these artifacts from the civil rights movement, and they have been begging her to help them get a museum. I mean, that city has so many tourists come through it. Another thing they've been begging for in multiple counties are storm shelters. You know, they had that awful tornado that hit Selma, went through Hale, Marengo counties. And like I said, federal money can't do everything, but we're like number 10 or 13 in
Right.
receiving federal money. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So
I think some numbers, if you had the militaries, were like 3 or 4 in
Yeah.
terms of what we received.
So my thing is, we want to make sure if we're getting that much money, what's it being spent on? And certainly we can, spend it on more quality things within these counties.
Well, and back to the first point we were talking about, actual plumbing like that works, not just a straight pipe right outside the house, something that, because that leads to all sorts of health problems, it's just quality of life problems. And it sounds like throughout all the things we've talked about, you have a pretty thoroughgoing critique of these sort of top-down systems that, have a lot of promises, but a lot of that money gets eaten up on the way down.
Yeah, I mean, I could sit here for hours and tell you stories. Little kids that are running across Green Springs and Birmingham to go to school every morning. They've been begging for a crosswalk. Again, federal money can't pay for everything, but if you find federal money, find grant money, then get the city of Birmingham, get the state to kick in, then it's doable. I had a child, I taught inner city Mobile for 10 years, and I had a child that got run over and killed on Dolphin Island Parkway. And, you have to sometimes step back and go, we've got to take care of our own. We can't take care of the world,
Right.
Yeah, we have to be a force, but we're not doing a good job of taking care of our own.
Amen. And we're pretty much out of time here. So again, we've been talking to Robin Litaker, U.S. Congress, candidate for U.S. Congress, District 7 here in Alabama. Again, Robin, if folks want to donate to your campaign, volunteer for you, how can they do so?
We have a WinRed account. You can go to my webpage. There's a link on there for a donation. My webpage is robinforalabama.com, and I have 2 Facebook pages, Robin for Alabama and Robin Litaker for Congress. Thank you.
Of course, it was great meeting you. This is for folks who don't know, first time we've met each other. I think have talked. So pleasure talking to you, and best of luck. And more than welcome if you want to come back closer to election
I'd
day.
love
Please
to.
do.
I'll have more stories to tell you.
Well, I'm sure, especially as you're around the district. I'd imagine.